The night the sky bled gold over Manhattan, I realized something brutal. I didn't belong at my own family's table. The rooftop sparkled, 12 crystal glasses glinting under the lights, 12 seats. But mine was missing. Tori smirked, her voice sugar-coated poison. Oops, guess we miscounted. The family laughed, soft, rehearsed, cruel. In that moment, the air turned colder than the marble beneath my feet. I stared at the empty spot, a ghost of respect that never existed. It hit me like a gut punch. I wasn't forgotten. I was erased. So I stood, buttoned my jacket, and said what no man should ever have to say to his own wife's family. Seems I'm not family. Then I walked away, calm on the outside, burning inside. Because some chairs aren't missing by accident. If you've ever been cut out of your own story, stay. You'll want to hear what happened next. Subscribe and keep listening. I'm 45, co-founder of a production company in Boston. Built it from nothing but long nights, bad coffee, and the belief that precision earns respect. My dad wired houses. My mom patched people up. They didn't have much, but they gave me rules that built men, not excuses. I learned early. Every screw, every promise, every client, you finish what you start. That's how I built a business that made the rich look flawless. Funny thing is, I never cared about luxury. I cared about control, about making sure nothing fell apart on my watch. That became my creed. Never let a client be embarrassed. Later, I'd realized that vow would cost me everything. Because when you live to protect everyone's image, you forget to guard your own. If you've ever built your life from scratch, thinking loyalty would be enough, keep listening. My story's about what happens when it isn't. It was a Hale Foundation gala, marble floors, string quartet, champagne that smelled like money. I was running the event, invisible in a black suit until she saw me. Tori Hale, sharp eyes, red lips, a kind of confidence that made you forget your name. She said, "You're the guy who made all this happen?" I nodded. "Then you're the guy who gets things done." No one had ever said it like that, like it was power, not labor. We talked between deadlines and champagne flutes. The night ended with her laughing at my dry jokes, touching my arm like she'd already decided. When she chose me, it felt like I'd crossed some invisible line, like I'd been invited into a world I only ever worked for. I didn't know it then, but in her family's world, love was just another transaction, and I was about to sign the wrong deal. Their mansion in Greenwich felt like a museum that charged rent. Portraits of ancestors stared down the hallway, every frame whispering, "You don't belong here." Dinner smelled of truffle and quiet judgment. Richard Hale shook my hand like it was a business contract. Eleanor's smile had the warmth of fine crystal, clear, cold, and easily shattered. She studied me, the way people study weather before deciding if it'll ruin their picnic. Then she said, "Ambition is cute, Daniel. Stability is better." Cute. The word hung there, small and humiliating. I laughed it off, but something inside me cracked, because I understood her perfectly. I wasn't one of them. I was a project, a story she could tell at lunch about her daughter's self-made husband. That night, I promised myself I'd earn their respect. I didn't know yet. Respect in that house was a game no outsider ever won. The wedding was flawless. Of course it was. I planned half of it myself. White tents, sea wind from Nantucket, and cameras flashing like promises. Everyone smiled, including me. The first year felt like a dream. Late dinners, shared plans, whispered talks about expanding my company. Tori bragged about me at parties. I believed her pride was love. We worked side by side, her elegance wrapping around my discipline. When deals closed and projects soared, she'd kiss me and say, "We make a great team." And we did, until I realized she loved the version of me that made her look good. But I didn't see that yet. I thought we were unstoppable. I thought marriage was a partnership built on trust and hustle. Turns out, ours was a contract built on appearance, and the fine print would burn me later. It didn't happen overnight. It was slow, like rust. At dinner, she'd cut me off mid-sentence, laughing louder, brighter. When I offered advice, she'd wave her hand. "You're overthinking it, Mr. Logistics." Everyone laughed. Meetings moved without me. My name disappeared from email threads. And at family dinners, I always ended up at the far end of the table, half a joke away from invisible. The worst part? She'd call me too sensitive when I noticed. Men like me, we don't explode. We absorb. We tell ourselves it's nothing, that silence is strength. But every little jab left a bruise you couldn't see. And one day, you wake up realizing the woman who once made you feel seen now treats you like furniture, useful, replaceable, silent. If you've ever sat there swallowing words just to keep the peace, you'll understand what I did next. Stay with me. Be a man. That's what I told myself every damn time, when she rolled her eyes mid-conversation, when her mother's insults came wrapped in silk, when silence filled the house like fog. Men like me, we don't yell. We fix, we work, we over-deliver. We think if we just do more, it'll be enough. So I stayed late at the office, let the noise of deadlines drown out the noise at home. I convinced myself it was strength, being quiet, being steady. But silence is heavier than anger. It presses on your chest, night after night, until breathing feels like work. And in that quiet, I started hearing something I'd ignored for years, my own thoughts. That's when I realized I'd been building everyone else's peace except my own. If you've ever mistaken endurance for love, you'll see where this is going. Stay with me. It started small. 1 invoice late, then 2. Vendors called asking about payments I'd personally guaranteed. International transfer delay, the Hale accountant said. Then Richard's eyes, avoiding mine. Tori's shrug. Just business, Dan. But I knew numbers. They tell the truth people hide. When a family with a private jet starts paying late, something's bleeding beneath the surface. I started digging, quietly, double-checking contracts, tracing payments, saving copies. Every file felt like pulling a thread on a suit tailored too tight. And behind the polished dinners and perfect smiles, I saw it. The Hale empire wasn't stable. It was crumbling, one lie at a time. Funny how people who judge your worth by your balance sheet never expect you to check theirs. So I smiled through another dinner, pretending I hadn't just realized I was standing in a burning house. Long table, silver cutlery, and laughter that never reached the eyes. The Hale family told stories about yachts, villas, safaris, rich people's small talk disguised as legacy. I tried to join in, offered a thought about a project in Boston, and Eleanor's smile froze. "How charming," she said, like patting a dog for doing a trick. They didn't argue with me. They erased me, slowly. Tori laughed at their jokes. I poured the wine. Their glances met across the table like I was a commercial break in their private movie. Then someone tugged a chair closer to the center, sliding mine further down. Just a few inches, but I felt every mile of it. That's how power works in rooms like theirs. Quiet, polite, invisible. By dessert, I wasn't a guest. I was staff. And the funny part? I still thanked them for dinner. They called it a celebration of legacy. I called it logistics. Eleanor's 70th in Manhattan, a rooftop overlooking Central Park, Michelin menu, the kind of event that gets its own press release. She wanted perfect, and I deliver perfect. I built the plan myself. Vendors, permits, staff, security, every dollar funneled through my company. "Don't screw this up," Richard joked. I smiled. I never do. Truth is, I wasn't doing it for them anymore. I was doing it for the last piece of pride I had left. One flawless event. One reminder that even if they treated me like a nobody, their world still ran on my work. As I sent the final confirmations that night, I didn't know it yet, but this wouldn't just be another Hale celebration. It would be their undoing. Because when you live for control, you eventually learn how to take it back. It was late. Tori's iPad buzzed on the counter, her name lighting up beside a text. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. "Can't wait to see you in NYC. Did you tell him?" Nate. I read it twice, hoping it would change. It didn't. My heart didn't drop. It calcified. I took a screenshot, emailed it to myself, deleted the message, and closed the lid like nothing happened. That's what experience teaches you. Control the evidence before you control the fallout. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I poured a drink instead, staring out at Boston Harbor. The city lights blurred like lies do when they start to multiply. I thought of every smile, every love you, every time she reached for my hand just to check the time. And in that quiet, I made my first calm decision in years. If they wanted a performance, I'd give them one. I found it on her printer. 3 neat pages, still warm from the ink. Mutual decision, amicable separation. The words were polished, rehearsed, bloodless. It wasn't a legal draft, it was a press release. At the bottom, a date, the same week as Eleanor's birthday dinner in New York. A perfect timeline. Announce the split after a flawless family event. The narrative would be clean. Daniel Brooks, the overworked husband who couldn't handle high society. I stood there holding that paper, realizing they'd already written my exit. I wasn't even the villain. I was background noise. The family that preached legacy and dignity was choreographing betrayal like a PR campaign. And for the first time in years, my anger didn't come out loud. It came out cold. They wanted a story where I walked away quietly. I'd give them one, just not the ending they planned. I started looking closer. Passwords, shared drives, unguarded emails. That's where I found it. Offshore accounts, loans on top of loans, fake transfers disguised as philanthropy, a memo marked urgent liquidity, a spreadsheet showing assets shuffled like cards between shell companies. The same people who lectured me about stability were gambling their empire to stay relevant. I remember whispering to myself, half amused, half disgusted, the SEC would love this mess. It wasn't just financial rot, it was moral decay, dressed in designer suits. And here's the irony. They thought I was too simple to notice. They forgot the man they underestimated built his fortune one contract, one receipt, one decimal at a time. So I saved everything. Copies, backups, timestamps. If they wanted to play dirty, I'd play precise, because the difference between a scandal and justice is proof. I tried to ask Tori about the missing payments. She smiled that brittle smile and said, "You worry too much." When I pressed, Eleanor stepped in. "Daniel, you should take some time off. You're clearly tired." Richard nodded like a judge. A real man doesn't get paranoid. There it was again. The same script, different cast. They turned concern into weakness, loyalty into instability. I looked at them. 3 people so fluent in lies they didn't even blink anymore. So I shut up. Let them think they'd silenced me. Because when people believe you're harmless, they get sloppy. And when they get sloppy, that's when truth walks in wearing steel-toed boots. That night, I stopped explaining myself. I stopped trying to be understood. Sometimes silence isn't surrender, it's aim. And I was taking careful, deliberate aim. It happened by accident or fate. I was in the hotel lobby finalizing event details when I heard Eleanor's voice through the thin glass divider. 12 seats, not 13. The arrangement's been approved by my son. His wife won't be staying. Family matter. The words hit harder than any punch I've ever taken. Not a mistake. A plan. The missing chair, already in motion. They weren't just cutting me out. They were staging it, dressing humiliation up as etiquette. I stood there, phone frozen in my hand, the reality settling in. They wanted a spectacle, not a dinner. And that's when the anger cooled into something sharper. Clarity. They'd built their little trap, forgetting who designed the blueprints. If they wanted to write a show, they'd better pray they controlled the stage lights. Spoiler, they didn't. I opened the event app I'd built myself. Every vendor, every booking, every dollar, linked to my company, my name, my authority. Contracts had clauses, clauses had triggers. All I had to do was tap once. I read through the chain, restaurant, hotel, vineyard, yacht, each one waiting for my confirmation code. The system I'd created to save clients from chaos was now my weapon. My thumb hovered over the button. Arm contingency. I pressed it. It felt like exhaling after holding my breath for 5 years. People think revenge is fire and fury. They're wrong. Real revenge is control, calm, methodical, legal. By the time the Hale family lifted their champagne glasses in New York, I had already lit the fuse. And no one, not Eleanor, not Tori, not their entire polished empire, had any idea what was coming. 48 hours until the dinner. Refunds pending, vendors waiting on my trigger. Every piece of their empire balanced on my quiet confirmation. I moved through those 2 days like a ghost. Calm voice, straight tie, steady hands. No one suspected a thing. Behind the mask, I was documenting everything. Screenshots, emails, timestamps. Each truth stored like ammunition. Every copy sent to my lawyer, encrypted. They thought they had control. I had the power grid. I looked at that missing seat in the event plan one last time and whispered to myself, when they pull my chair, I pull their power. There's something sacred about stillness before a storm. It's the kind of quiet men understand, the moment before you swing, before you finally stop pretending. And as that countdown ticked toward 0, I felt something I hadn't in years. Peace. Because revenge wasn't chaos. It was precision. The evening before the event was theater at its finest. Tori stood in front of a mirror, sliding into her silver gown like nothing had ever cracked between us. Eleanor reviewed her guest list with military precision. Richard whispered into his phone, voice low, urgent, transactional. And me? I wore my best PR smile, the one you practice when your heart's a fist and your life's on fire. It was strange, watching them rehearse their roles in the perfect family act, not realizing the set was wired to explode. They thought tomorrow was celebration. Only I knew. It was detonation. Because when you spend your life building perfect events, you eventually learn how to end one. Eleanor asked, "Daniel, are you all right?" "Never better," I lied, steady as stone. Truth is, I wasn't angry anymore. I was cold. You can't play emotion against a man who's run out of it. That night, lying beside Tori, I stared at the ceiling and thought, tomorrow, I stop performing. And when I stop, the whole show falls apart. In my line of work, your name is your currency. Vendors trust your word, not your wallet. You deliver, or you're done. That's why I built my business on one rule: never let a client be embarrassed. But somewhere between love and loyalty, I forgot there's one exception. You never protect someone who's trying to humiliate you. That's not integrity. That's self-erasure. As I double-checked the event checklist, I thought of my father, who taught me to fix what's broken, and my mother, who taught me to know when to walk away. So I made a quiet amendment to my creed that night. Respect everyone. Protect no one who disrespects you. It's a strange kind of clarity, when you realize dignity isn't about what people think of you. It's about what you'll never let them take, and I wasn't about to let them take mine. My father once said, measure twice, cut once. So I did. Tomorrow, I wouldn't just cut fabric, I'd cut the facade. The elevator doors opened to gold light and skyline. The table shimmered under chandeliers, 12 seats perfectly arranged. Laughter echoed, sharp and rehearsed. And then I saw it. The gap. The missing chair. They'd turned my erasure into decor. Tori's hand rested on her mother's arm. Richard's smile was tight. It was all deliberate, polished cruelty in designer suits. I felt the world slow down. The hum of the city faded. Every fake laugh sounded like nails in wood. My chair wasn't missing by mistake. It was missing by design. A final gesture to remind me I'd never belong. Funny thing is, they thought humiliation would break me. But what they didn't know was that I'd already taken everything that made this dinner possible and turned it into their own noose. All that was left was timing. My heartbeat slowed. My mouth was dry. I looked around the table, Eleanor glowing in pearls, Richard pretending dignity, Tori avoiding my eyes, and I remembered Worcester. My father's rough hands, my mother's tired smile, people who earned their seats, not bought them. I felt the weight lift. I straightened my jacket, let the silence stretch until even the candles flickered. Then I said it. 4 words. Simple, sharp, unrehearsed. Seems I'm not family. You could hear forks pause midair. I turned, not fast, not angry, just done. Sometimes the loudest thing a man can say is enough. Behind me, laughter died. The show cracked. In their world of facades, I'd just rewritten the script with truth. And truth, I've learned, doesn't need an audience. It just needs a moment of courage, and a man willing to walk away. They thought I was walking away from dinner. They didn't know I was walking toward their collapse. The night air hit the back of my neck, cool, sharp, almost kind. Behind me, their laughter stumbled, died halfway through. The sound of my shoes against the wooden floor echoed like a slow countdown. No one stopped me. Not Tori, not her family. The staff looked down, pretending not to see the man being erased in real time. At the elevator, I paused. I could have turned back, demanded an apology, made a scene, but some things don't deserve noise. I pressed the button. The doors slid shut. The reflection staring back wasn't a victim. It was a man done pretending. No tears, no rage, just a silence that weighed more than any shout. Sometimes walking away isn't weakness, it's reclamation. And as the elevator descended, I realized something powerful. Dignity doesn't walk out crying, it walks out calm. The lobby glowed in that dim, honey-colored light hotels used to hide exhaustion. I ordered an espresso, black, bitter, focused. Pulled out my phone, logged into the app. Every vendor, every invoice, every event tied to my name. The same network that built their celebration now waited for my command. The cursor blinked beside status active. My thumb hovered. I wasn't angry anymore. I was surgical. I selected suspend, tapped confirm, and felt something settle inside me. The first domino was set. I looked at my reflection in the espresso glass, eyes steady, jaw tight. It wasn't revenge, it was correction. They'd mistaken kindness for compliance. Tonight, they'd learn the difference. Across the bar, laughter rose from another table, unaware that upstairs, their perfect world had just been unplugged. I started the timer on my watch. 30 minutes. That's how long it would take before the first alert hit their table. Emails pinged, restaurant refund confirmed, hotel booking revoked, winery deposit reversed, transportation contract canceled. Each notification was a quiet explosion, invisible but absolute. I sipped what was left of my espresso, the bitterness grounding me in the calm before chaos. You know that stillness right before thunder? That's where I was, between consequence and comprehension. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I just watched the clock tick down, second by second. Because revenge isn't loud, it's procedural. And when you've spent your life fixing other people's messes, pulling the plug becomes an act of grace. My phone buzzed. Then again. Then non-stop. Where are you? Stop being childish. Mother's upset. Then, there's an issue with the reservation. I stared at the screen, unread, unbothered. Every word felt smaller, more desperate. The same voices that once dismissed me were now scrambling for my attention. Funny how power shifts in silence. The messages stacked like noise in a void, and still I said nothing. Silence, once their weapon, was now mine. Men don't always win by shouting. Sometimes we win by refusing to answer. So I turned my phone face down, leaned back, and let them stew in the confusion they'd earned. If they wanted a reaction, they'd have to pay for it. And this time, in full. I dialed Marco, the restaurant manager. He answered on the first ring, nervous, respectful. Mr. Brooks? Proceed per our agreement. I could hear the hesitation, the faint tremor of a man realizing he's about to witness something no training manual covers. All refunds are confirmed, sir. Awaiting your go for cancellation. My voice didn't shake. Go. One word. Clean. Final. The sound of that click, of authority reasserted, was the closest thing to satisfaction I'd felt in years. While they toasted Eleanor's birthday upstairs, the foundation beneath their celebration was vanishing, quietly, transaction by transaction. I hung up, pocketed the phone, and took another breath. For once, I wasn't reacting. I was executing. They thought I was just the help, but the help had just shut down the lights. It started small. Marco leaned in to whisper something to Richard, tablet glowing under the candlelight. Richard's brow furrowed. Eleanor's fork stopped midair. Across the table, Tori's phone lit up like a warning flare. Then came the hush. You could feel the temperature drop as realization rippled through the room. Their perfect dinner, thousands of dollars, months of planning, suspended on a single fact. The payment guarantee was gone. No backup, no safety net. The staff hovered politely, unsure whether to serve or retreat. In the silence, the family's elegance began to crack. Eleanor's smile stiffened. Richard's voice dropped to a hiss. And in that instant, every sneer, every sideways comment, every small humiliation I'd swallowed came rushing back like static in my ears. They wanted to teach me my place, Now they were learning theirs. Power doesn't vanish, it just changes hands. The phone buzzed in my pocket. I knew it was her before I looked. "Fix this," she whispered, voice trembling under the weight of panic. I took a breath, slow and steady. "What exactly needs fixing? Our dinner? Our family? You canceled our life." I almost laughed, not out of spite, but recognition. "No, Tori," I said quietly. "I canceled your show." Silence, then a small broken exhale. "You're destroying everything." "No," I replied. "I'm revealing it." The truth hit her before I hung up. The realization that the man she'd tried to erase had built the entire stage she stood on. She'd mistaken calm for weakness. Now she was hearing the sound of consequence, the click of a call ending, and the echo of control returning to its rightful owner. Revenge wasn't fire. It was silence after the truth lands. I slipped through the service hallway, the air hot with steam and panic from the kitchen staff whispering about the scene upstairs. The closer I got, the clearer the noise. Voices raised, silver clinking, Eleanor's hiss cutting through the chatter like glass breaking. My pulse didn't race. My breathing stayed even. I'd already made peace with this ending. At the corner, I paused. Through the half-open door, I saw the table, Tori on her phone, Richard gesturing wildly, Eleanor standing now, fury in pearls. Then I stepped out from the shadows. The room fell silent as I appeared behind them. Not as the help, not as the husband, as the ghost they tried to bury, and the man who came back to collect the truth. You could feel it ripple through the air, not fear, not guilt, just the recognition that the story had flipped. Eleanor was the first to speak. "How dare you?" she hissed, voice trembling with the kind of outrage only the entitled can afford. Richard's face turned crimson. Tori's eyes glistened, not from shame, but panic. I stood straight, calm as stone. "You taught me about appearances, Eleanor," I said evenly. "You built your life on them, but here's what appearances can't cover. Truth." The nearby tables had gone quiet, every eye on us, watching the facade crumble in real time. "You wanted a scene," I said, voice steady. "This is it, unfiltered, raw, the truth you spent your life dressing up." I leaned in just enough for only them to hear. "You taught me to protect your dignity. Tonight, I'm protecting mine." When I stepped back, Eleanor's lips trembled. There's no sound quite like the moment a mask hits the floor. Richard tried to regain ground. "You'll regret this, Daniel. You don't understand what you're playing with." I smiled, slow and quiet, the kind of smile that unnerves men who've run out of power. "I understand perfectly," I said. "Let me remind you." I listed the details: the investment fund, the offshore accounts, the memo marked urgent liquidity, the falsified loans, the internal emails dated 2 months before. With each word, their color drained further. "Don't bother denying it," I added. "Your accountant's digital trail could win awards." Then I finished it clean. "I think the SEC would love to hear this story. Maybe they'll enjoy the irony. Family of integrity, built on fraud." The silence that followed wasn't peace. It was fear recalculating. That's the thing about evidence. It doesn't care who's rich. It only cares who's right. Her hand clutched her pearls like they could still buy her dignity. The necklace trembled between her fingers, the reflection of the city lights dancing on every bead. Her eyes darted around the table, seeking control, finding none. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. The matriarch of the Hale family, queen of composure, was finally silent. You could almost hear the weight of her pride snapping. In that instant, the pearls weren't jewelry anymore. They were chains, symbols of power that no longer held value. For years, she'd weaponized etiquette and grace. Tonight, those tools turned to dust. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Watching her mask crack was enough. Sometimes justice isn't loud. It's quiet, elegant, and delivered with the same precision they once used to cut you down. Eleanor Hale wasn't destroyed by me. She was undone by her own reflection. Richard reached for his wallet like money could rewrite the moment. A platinum card flashed, trembling slightly between his fingers. He motioned to Marco, whispering, "Charge it. Just quietly. Discretion." But there was no discretion left. The whispers from nearby tables had already spread like fire. The name Hale floated through the air, attached to words like canceled, unpaid, embarrassed. He dialed his banker, voice sharp, desperate, suddenly aware that status doesn't answer calls at 9 p.m. For a man who spent his life controlling outcomes, this was chaos. His power had always lived in secrecy, in quiet deals and polite smiles. Tonight, secrecy was dead. I watched him realize what every powerful man eventually learns. The higher your pedestal, the longer the fall. And sometimes it happens in front of dinner guests. Tori's eyes were red, her voice barely holding steady. "We can fix this," she said, a plea disguised as strength. I looked at her, calm, tired. "Can we?" Then I asked, "Nate?" Her silence was the answer. She didn't flinch, didn't deny. It was worse. She just looked down. In that quiet, I saw everything I needed to. The late nights, the hidden smiles, the distance between us, it all fit. She'd built a world where truth was optional. I'd spent mine surviving by it. I nodded once. "Then we're done." No anger, no shouting, just release. The hardest truths don't come from confrontation. They come from the silence right after. And for the first time that night, I didn't feel betrayed. I felt free. I stepped out onto the rooftop one last time. The city stretched beneath me, Manhattan glowing like 1,000 small lies pretending to be stars. The wind hit my face, clean and cold. Behind me, chaos hummed, the dinner unraveling, the family spinning. But out here, there was peace. I walked to the elevator, pressed the button, and watched my reflection in the glass doors. The man staring back wasn't broken. He was done. For years, I'd traded my dignity for belonging. Tonight, I took it back. When the elevator doors closed, I whispered, not for them, but for me. I choose dignity. And for the first time in years, the silence didn't feel like defeat. It felt like arrival. By morning, the city knew. The hotel demanded prepayment. Word was the Hale's account was no longer valid. The winery pulled out. The transportation company refused service without a wire transfer. Rumors moved fast in high society. Too fast. By noon, whispers became headlines. Hale Gala in disarray. Legacy family faces financial questions. Eleanor's friends began canceling brunches. Richard's associates stopped returning calls. Tori disappeared from social feeds overnight. That's the thing about facades. They don't crack, they collapse. And as their world spun, mine steadied. I didn't have to lift a finger. The truth had momentum of its own. Every empire built on pretense falls the same way, quietly, then all at once. And when the dust settled, there was only one thing left standing, the man they tried to erase. The first text came at dawn. "Our lawyers will be in touch." Then another. "Defamation, damages, you'll regret this." Threats dressed in legal language, his comfort zone. I read them once, screenshot them, and forwarded the chain to my lawyer. No reply, no emotion, just documentation. Then I typed back 3 words. "See you in discovery." I could almost hear him choke on his morning espresso. Men like Richard thrive on intimidation, on control through fear. But once you strip that away, all that's left is paperwork and panic. For years, I'd fought battles by emotion. Now I fought them by evidence. That's how you win wars with people who think they're untouchable. You make them touch the truth, under oath. And this time, every lie they'd ever written down would testify for me. I got back to my room, loosened my tie, and dropped it on the chair. My reflection stared back from the mirror, eyes tired, face older, but lighter. There was a faint red mark on my neck where the tie had been digging in all night. Funny how something so small could feel like a metaphor for the last 5 years. I turned off the lights. For the first time in forever, the dark didn't feel like pressure. It felt like rest. No buzzing phone, no voices telling me how to behave, just silence, heavy and kind. When I finally fell asleep, I didn't dream of revenge or regret. I just slept. And maybe that's what freedom really feels like. Not fireworks, not triumph, just the quiet that comes after you stop needing permission to exist. Back in Boston, my lawyer, Erin, was waiting. She didn't ask for explanations, just evidence. I handed her the flash drive, contracts, emails, screenshots, everything in order, every timestamp neat. "Good," she said, scanning the files. "This covers you. You're clean." She drafted the protection plan: asset freeze, trust transfers, contingency accounts. If they move first, we counter immediately. If they stay quiet, we let them hang themselves with their own arrogance. Her confidence was like armor. Before I left, she slid a sealed envelope across the desk. "Open this only if they attack. It's your legal shield." For the first time, I realized I didn't just survive their world, I outgrew it. I wasn't the man begging for acceptance anymore. I was the man who had prepared for every move they could make. The apartment was half empty, boxes labeled books, kitchen, past. On the table, my wedding ring sat alone beside a coffee mug. I stared at it for a long moment, then left it where it was. I packed the things that mattered: my first edition books, the framed photo of my parents, and the keys to my new apartment downtown. Everything else, furniture, art, wedding china, stayed behind. Leaving with nothing but what's truly yours is a strange kind of wealth. When I closed the door of the brownstone for the last time, I didn't look back. You can't rebuild your life if you keep checking the ruins. I walked out with empty hands and a clear conscience. Clean exits aren't about what you take. They're about what you refuse to carry. The new place was quiet. Bare walls, big windows, and the slow sound of the Charles River moving below. I made coffee, black, strong, no sugar. Watched the morning light crawl across the floor. My phone was lighter too, half the contacts gone, the noise trimmed down to essentials. Peace takes space. You have to clear out the clutter to hear yourself again. The world I left was built on money, image, noise. This one was built on silence, air, and choice. I used to think success was about being seen. Now I know. It's about not needing to prove you're alive. I sipped my coffee, exhaled, and whispered the truth I'd finally earned. Peace is worth more than money. And for the first time, I believed it. It started as a whisper, a tiny column buried in the back of the Boston Globe. Investment group faces preliminary inquiry. Just one paragraph. But that's all it takes for a reputation built on champagne and press photos to start bleeding out. Within 24 hours, sponsors pulled out. Invitations were rescinded. Internal emails leaked full of panic and blame. Calls that once came hourly from the Hale Circle went silent. And me? I didn't say a word. Sometimes silence is strategy. When your enemies are busy trying to plug holes, the last thing you do is hand them a map. I watched the chaos unfold from my balcony, coffee in hand, city waking below. They ran. I didn't. Because when the truth finally starts chasing liars, it doesn't need help catching up. The doorbell rang just after dusk. When I opened it, she was standing there, eyes tired, makeup smudged, clutching her bag like armor. She didn't ask to come in. She just did. We sat across from each other, silence stretching wide between us. Then she said it. "Name your price. I'll sign an NDA." There it was, the Hale instinct. Not remorse, not love, damage control. I leaned back, studying her face. The same woman who once laughed under Nantucket sunsets now looked like a stranger trying to buy back a soul. Funny thing about power, once you stop needing it, you become untouchable. "I'm not here for money, Tori," I said quietly. "I already cashed out. My piece." Her hands trembled. She wasn't used to losing control of the narrative, and tonight she had none. I poured her a glass of water, sat, listened. She spoke fast, desperate. Lawyers, reputation, what people might think. I didn't interrupt once. When she finished, I set the glass down carefully between us. "I don't want money," I said, my voice calm but final. "I want peace." Her face froze. It hit her like a language she didn't speak. In her world, everything had a price. But peace, that's something the rich can't buy. "You're making a mistake," she whispered. "No," I said. "I'm correcting one." For years, she'd traded authenticity for appearance. Now she was learning the real cost of pretending. I walked her to the door, not unkind, just done. Sometimes mercy isn't forgiveness. It's walking away before resentment gets another chance to grow. Before she left, she turned back. We had love. Once. For a second, her voice sounded like the girl I used to know. And for that brief moment, I let myself remember the good days, late-night drives, dumb jokes, the way she used to look at me like I built something worth believing in. I know, I said softly, and I'm grateful for those days. We both made mistakes, hers with pride, mine with patience, but at least we could name them. Take care of yourself, Tori, I added. The door clicked shut. Some endings don't need fire or noise, they just need respect. I wasn't erasing the past. I was protecting the man it made me become. That's closure, not revenge, not regret, just clarity. Erin called a week later. Everything's verified, she said. The files are sealed in a secure channel, encrypted, time-stamped, admissible. It wasn't a threat. It was insurance. If the hails struck first, if they tried to bury me legally, we'd open the archive. One file, one truth at a time. Remember, Erin warned, the truth isn't just defense, it's leverage. I nodded. Then let's keep it ready. She smiled. That's exactly where it belongs. It's strange how power shifts when you stop chasing fairness and start trusting facts. They could lie louder, spend harder, spin faster, but the truth doesn't care. It waits. And when the day came that they'd try to come for me again, I already knew what I'd say. Check the evidence. The first email came on a quiet morning. Subject line, referral from an old client. Then another, and another. People I'd worked with years ago were reaching out again. The same words repeated. We heard how you handled yourself. Impressive discretion. Turns out, character travels faster than gossip. By the end of the week, I had an offer, an event in Chicago. Big money, clean slate, no family politics. I leaned back in my chair, reading the proposal. The irony wasn't lost on me. The very thing that was supposed to destroy my reputation had polished it instead. In a world obsessed with noise, silence had built my credibility. I didn't need a comeback story. My work spoke for itself. I typed one word in reply. Yes. Because survival isn't the goal anymore. Building something new is. It came in the afternoon. Unknown number. I knew the voice instantly. You ruined us, Eleanor spat. Her tone was brittle, half rage, half disbelief. I let her speak, let her vent. Threats, accusations, desperation, all pouring through the line. When she finally paused to breathe, I said quietly, No, Eleanor. You ruined yourselves. Silence. Then I added, It started the night you set 12 chairs instead of 13. For a long moment, she didn't respond. The truth landed heavier than any insult could. That chair had been her symbol of exclusion. Now, it was the emblem of her fall. You'll regret this, she said finally. I already did, I answered, and hung up. Powerful people fear one thing above all, being ignored. And that was my final act of power. I didn't need to fight anymore. The rain came in slow sheets, tapping against the window like an old rhythm I'd forgotten. Streetlights blurred into gold smears, the city humming its usual lullaby. I sat by the desk, a piano playlist low in the background, and my laptop pinged. Chicago contract draft. I opened it, scrolling through the terms, my reflection ghosted in the dark screen. Somewhere between thunder and jazz, I smiled. It wasn't triumph, it was something quieter. A steady pulse of hope. For the first time in years, the future didn't scare me. It invited me. The storm outside didn't feel like chaos anymore. It felt like cleansing. When you've walked through fire, rain isn't bad weather. It's rebirth. Here's what I learned. Loyalty isn't the same as submission. Staying quiet doesn't mean you don't see. It means you're choosing your moment. And leaving doesn't make you weak. Sometimes it's the bravest thing you'll ever do. Men are taught to endure, to hold the line, to take the hit. But real strength isn't the swing, it's the restraint. It's knowing when to walk, when to let silence speak, when to protect peace over pride. Because peace isn't passive, it's earned. And for anyone listening, especially the men who've ever been told to man up while breaking inside, here's your reminder. You can rebuild, you can walk away, you can start over, and you can do it without losing your soul. The city was still waking up. I jogged along the Charles, breath steady, shoes tapping rhythm against the wet pavement. The river moved smooth and silver beside me, catching the morning sun in flashes. Every inhale felt cleaner, lighter. I wasn't running from anything anymore. I was running toward something. By the time I stopped at the bridge, the skyline gleamed under a soft glow. Boston was alive again. So was I. I leaned on the railing, watching the ripples spread across the water. Every end I'd feared had simply been an opening. That's the truth about rock bottom. It's just solid ground to start rebuilding on. The world kept moving, and so did I. And this time, it was on my own rhythm. I went through my contacts one night, not the business kind, the personal ones. Names I hadn't said out loud in years. Some made me smile. Others felt like a bruise that finally stopped hurting. Delete, block, keep. By the end, my phone was quieter, lighter. Dinner alone didn't sting anymore. It felt earned. I ordered what I wanted, stayed as long as I liked, and walked home under streetlights that didn't feel lonely. My schedule shrank. My peace grew. That's the thing no one tells you. When you start subtracting the wrong people, you multiply your freedom. Less noise, more space. And for the first time in a long time, I slept through the night without dreams, without ghosts, without needing anyone to tell me I'd done enough. Because I finally believed it myself. Erin slid the paperwork across the desk. "This ends it clean," she said. We reviewed every clause. Assets divided, accounts secured, no disputes, no drama. No one fought over furniture or jewelry. There were no accusations left to trade. When it came time to sign, I paused for a second, not from hesitation, but from peace. It wasn't loss. It was closure on paper. I signed. She signed. The ink dried fast. "That's it," Erin said quietly. The word divorced used to sound like failure. Now it felt like completion. Two people had built a life, broken it, and finally had the decency to end it with respect. As I left her office, I didn't look back. Some endings don't need applause. They just need a clean signature and a steady hand. It didn't take long. A donor pulled funding. The Hale Charity Gala, canceled. A few polite statements made, all hollow, all spin. The whispers became chatter, then headlines. The Hales retreat from public life. Legacy family faces fallout. Their empire hadn't burned. It had decayed, quietly from the inside out. And me? I said nothing. No interviews, no comments, no satisfaction parade. Because the real victory isn't proving you were right. It's not needing to. In a city that runs on gossip, silence is the rarest luxury. While they scrambled to rewrite their reputation, I was too busy living mine. No more noise, no more pretending. Just life, clean and unperformed. BOS to ORD, 7:10 a.m. Window seat, black coffee, no checked luggage. Just a laptop and a folder labeled New Start. Outside, the clouds spread like a blank page. I scrolled through my deck one last time. Event specs, client profile, numbers tight, plan solid. Jazz hummed through my earbuds, and my team texted, "Good luck, boss." I smiled. This wasn't about proving anything. It was about building something that belonged only to me. The captain's voice came over the intercom. "We're cleared for takeoff." And as the plane lifted, Boston fell away beneath me. A past I'd survived, not escaped. Freedom isn't running. It's rising. And for the first time, I didn't look down. I looked forward. The Chicago skyline gleamed behind the floor-to-ceiling windows. The CEO stood, extended his hand. "We've heard about your work, Daniel, especially your discretion." That word again, discretion. The one thing I refused to trade. We talked logistics, timelines, vision. The room hummed with calm authority. No drama, no politics. Just respect earned the hard way. When I finished presenting, he nodded once. "Let's do it." Simple words, heavy meaning. The deal was done. Not because I was lucky, but because I'd rebuilt my name on truth, not noise. As I left the building, The city felt alive around me. Concrete, sunlight, motion. Not redemption, not revenge, just work, purpose. And for a man like me, that's everything. The city lights stretched across the skyline like constellations drawn by man, steady, bright, alive. I sat by the hotel window, room service tray half empty, the hum of downtown drifting up from below. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel the need to fill the silence. I called my mother. She picked up on the second ring. We didn't talk about the past, just life, work, the weather. Then she said softly, "I'm proud of you, Danny." It hit harder than I expected. Not because I needed approval, but because I'd finally earned peace on my own terms. I closed my eyes, let the warmth of her voice settle where anger used to live. The city kept shining outside, indifferent and beautiful, and for the first time in years, I wasn't alone. I was connected to where I came from and who I finally became. It came late. Subject line, "I'm sorry." No legal threats, no excuses. Just a few paragraphs about regret, about not knowing what she had until it was gone. I read it once, slowly, then again, just to make sure I felt nothing but understanding. When I finished, I didn't reply. I set my phone down, leaned back, and exhaled. Forgiveness isn't about letting someone back in. It's about letting them go without bitterness. For years, her voice had been the echo in every quiet room I entered. Now it was just another sound that faded naturally. I smiled, not because I'd won, but because I was finally free from needing to. That's what closure really feels like. Peace without a witness. The sun poured through the hotel window, soft and gold. Coffee on the desk, laptop open. My team on video call, already laughing about a vendor mix-up. Work had rhythm again. Meetings, ideas, problem-solving, progress. I cracked a joke, and this time the laughter came easy, real, not polite. Somewhere between task lists and check-ins, I realized I was smiling for no reason. No performance, no armor, just life. The scars were still there, sure, but they'd turned into something else. Proof that I'd been through hell and kept walking. I looked out at the city, tall, alive, indifferent. A new project, a new day, and this time the sound of my own laughter didn't echo. It belonged exactly where it was. That night in Manhattan, there was one chair missing. Mine. They thought they'd erased me from their table, from their story, from their world. But walking away from that rooftop wasn't defeat. It was definition. Every step I took after that was a trade. Noise for peace, pride for purpose, appearances for truth. They had money, titles, press releases. I had silence, and silence, when chosen, is louder than applause. They cut my chair. I kept my dignity. That line stays with me, even now, because life will always hand you rooms that weren't built for you, tables that pretend to welcome you, people who mistake kindness for weakness. Let them. Build your own table, pull up your own chair, and when they ask what it's made of, tell them steel and self-respect.